Chapter 1. When I tell people I inherited $180,000 at 16, they either assume I'm making it up or I'm about to star in a reality show. Neither is true, at least not yet. If anyone had asked me last year what my biggest worry was, I would have told them AP Chemistry or making conversation at lunch. But now, after Nana's and Papa's funerals, here I am, paging through legal documents and wondering why my hands keep shaking. It's weirdly lonely, being 16 with the kind of money most adults never dream about. It doesn't feel real, not like the old Afghan on my bed that still smells like Nana's hand lotion, or the Polaroid of Papa and me at the county fair, stuck in the corner of my mirror. I miss them every single day. No amount of money makes that better. But they left it for me, just for me. There's no confusion on the forms, no room for interpretation. To our beloved granddaughter, Emma Marie Carter, we leave the sum of $180,000 to be used at her sole discretion. I remember the attorney's soft, formal voice as he read their will. My parents looked stunned. Uncle George had pursed his lips. Aunt Sophia's eyebrows shot up so high they practically merged with her hairline. People keep reminding me that's a lot of responsibility. Thanks, I hadn't noticed. My grandparents and I, we had something special. They always said so, and not in the way adults say things just to make kids feel good. Nana used to let me practice my French with her every Wednesday after school, even though her accent was hilariously off. Papa took me hiking every summer and never complained when I rattled on about climate change or recited facts about algae blooms. They never treated me like I was just a kid. They saw me. Maybe that's why, after the funeral, Aunt Sophia swooped in. It was barely a week before she cornered me in my parents' kitchen, caramel-smelling coffee in hand, nails manicured like movie stars. "Emma, darling," she said, in her not-quite-hugging pose, "I know this must be overwhelming. Family is so important right now, don't you think?" She wanted to discuss my inheritance. "Your uncle and I have been thinking," she said, glancing at George as if for backup. He grunted from behind the fridge door, already searching for his third Coke of the morning. "What if we set up a family fund, all of us pooling together for everyone's benefit? That's the Carter way." I just blinked, caught off guard. "But Nana and Papa said it was for me." My voice sounded small. George finally joined in, flattening his palms dramatically on the table. You're young. Managing that kind of money, it's a lot. If we handle it, you don't have to worry. One pot, one goal. Family first." I know what you're thinking. This is textbook manipulation. But in that moment, there's certainty hooked into all my doubts. I'm not a fighter by nature. I'm the kind of person who double-checks the homework rubric and says, "Excuse me," even when it's not my fault. I don't want conflict. Still, I heard Nana's voice in my head. "Don't let other people write your story for you." But George and Sophia kept pushing. Suddenly, my phone buzzed multiple times a day with texts. "Have you thought about the fund? Let's chat numbers." It's what your grandparents would want. The truth, I felt torn apart. I trusted my grandparents. They'd never do something to hurt the family, right? But then, why just me? Why make it so explicit, so official if they wanted the money shared? I tried bringing it up with my parents while we ate spaghetti in front of the TV, steam fogging up my glasses. Mark, my dad, stiffened. "It's your inheritance, Em. Your grandparents loved you. You know George. He's always looking for an angle." Jessica, my mom, looked pained. "It's hard, honey. You want everyone to be happy, but this is your future. Don't let anyone guilt you out of it." I wondered then if my grandparents knew George and Sophia would do this. It got weirder. George kept calling from random numbers. One evening, just as I was about to start my homework, my phone buzzed. "Blocked," the screen said. I let it ring. Aunt Sophia's followers on Instagram don't know she can be terrifying. During family dinner last week, she leaned closer, smile frozen on her face, and said, "You should remember, Emma, that family is forever. Choices have consequences." I felt her words crawling down my spine. But I pretended to laugh and changed the subject to college plans. I learned to deflect, to dance around the edges of my discomfort. Still, every time I logged into my bank account and saw the vastness of that number, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. deeply, heartbreakingly grateful. But I can feel the storm brewing. The grown-ups in my life now have their own calculations, their own equations. Maybe they see me as a number or a piggy bank or a means to an end. I wish I could talk to Nana and Papa just one more time. Ask them, why me? What am I supposed to do with all this? I lie awake and stare through the crack in my curtains at the shape of the tree Papa planted our first fall in this house. I try to remember his voice, the way his big hand felt squeezing my shoulder, reassuring me I could do hard things. Whatever happens next, I'll have to figure it out. But part of me hopes, no, believes, they trusted me for a reason. It's my story, after all. Maybe it's time I start telling it myself. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands in my lap. My fingers twisted around each other. My mom and dad sat across from me. Mom stared at the table. Dad rubbed his chin, looking tired. I said, Uncle George keeps calling me. He wants me to put my inheritance in a family fund. He says it's for everyone, not just me. Dad let out a gruff sigh. George is always thinking about himself first. I know him. Mom looked at me with sad eyes. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Emma, honey, is he bothering you? I nodded slowly. He calls. He sends messages. Aunt Sophia, too. She says I should do the right thing, but I think it means what she wants, not what I want. Mom frowned. Sophia can be pushy. You remember last Christmas? She made you feel bad for not getting her kids expensive presents. Dad said, Emma, this money is yours. It's what your grandparents wanted. I felt a lump in my throat. But Uncle George makes me feel guilty. He said I'm too young and I could mess up. Dad's jaw tightened. You are smart enough, Emma, and George has never been good with money. I saw it growing up. He always spent more than he had, no matter how much he made. Mom sighed. We don't want a big family fight, honey, but we have to protect you. Your grandparents gave you this money because they loved you and believed in you. They wanted it for your future. Dad reached across the table and patted my shoulder. You don't have to listen to George. I said, Dad, he gets so angry. He almost yelled last time. He said if I cared about family, I would trust him with the money. Mom looked worried. Did he threaten you, Emma? I shook my head, but I remembered how his voice changed on the phone. No, not really, but he said weird stuff like this could change everything. Then he hung up. Dad grunted. That sounds like him. I blinked hard, fighting tears. What if everyone gets mad at me? What if the whole family stops talking to me? Mom stroked my hair. That won't happen. We will always be here. It's okay to stand up for yourself, Emma. I whispered, I miss Nana and Papa. I wish I could ask them what to do. Dad's eyes got shiny. He said, they would want you to be safe and happy. They didn't give George the money for a reason. I nodded. Uncle George says the family needs it. He says he can make it grow, so we all have more. Dad snorted. That's not true. He can't even pay his own credit cards. Mom said gently, did you talk to anyone else about this? I shook my head. No, just you guys. I feel like everyone is staring at me, like I did something wrong. Mom gave me a soft smile. You did nothing wrong. This is a gift. Don't let someone take it away. We sat in silence for a minute. My stomach felt tight, like a knot. Dad said, I can talk to George if you want. Tell him to leave you alone. I shook my head quickly. No, that might make it worse. He always says I'm just a kid and too emotional to handle money. Mom frowned. That's mean, Emma. You're brave for telling us don't believe him. My voice came out tiny. I just want them to stop. I want to feel like this money is a good thing, not a bad thing. Mom wiped my cheek with her thumb. I hadn't noticed I was crying. She said, how about we spend some time thinking? We'll look up what your options are. No decisions right now, okay? I nodded, feeling a little better but still scared. Dad stood up and stretched. No more worrying for tonight. Let George and Sophia wait. This is your life. I looked at the clock. It was getting late. The kitchen felt heavy and quiet. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the table. I jumped. My heart thudded. It was another message from Uncle George. Dad saw my face go pale. Do you want me to answer it this time? I swallowed, nodding. Maybe, or maybe we should just see what he says first. Mom squeezed my shoulder. Emma, no matter what, we stand by you. I tried to smile, but my hands shook. I stared at my phone, dreading what might be in the message. Would he be nice or angry? Was there something he wasn't telling us? I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. Uncle George wasn't going to stop. Not until he got what he wanted, or I said no. Outside, the wind pounded against the kitchen window. I hugged myself tight, afraid of what the next day might bring. I was alone in my room, flipping through an old book my grandfather gave me. My hands felt cold. I missed him so much. As I turned a page, I found something tucked inside. It was a folded, yellow piece of paper. I held my breath. I opened the letter. It was in Papa's messy handwriting. My eyes blurred. I read, "Dear Emma, I know you are smart and kind. Money is hard to handle, but I trust you. Don't let anyone push you around. Save, learn, and become who you want to be. Remember, education is the best gift. Love, Papa." I put the letter to my heart and cried. I whispered, "Thank you, Papa, I needed this." Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Uncle George. I wiped my tears and answered. I said, "Hello." George sounded upset. He said, "Emma, I've called you 5 times. Why are you ignoring me?" I said, "I was busy with school." He snapped, "You have to decide about the family fund. This money shouldn't just sit there when everyone could use it." I took a shaky breath. Papa wanted it for my education. My voice quivered, but I tried to sound strong. He scoffed and said, "Emma, you're 16. You can't handle so much money. You'll just waste it. Let adults take care of it. Family should trust each other." I bit my lip. I do trust family, but I want to do what Papa wanted. George's voice turned sharp. "You're making a huge mistake. Don't be selfish. Don't let your parents fill your head with nonsense." His words felt like hot needles. My hand shook. I said, "I can think for myself." George got louder. "Don't talk back. Listen, if you don't help the family, people will be very unhappy. Is that what you want?" I wanted to cry, but I squeezed Papa's letter in my hand. I said, "I have to go now. Bye, Uncle George." I hung up quickly and put my phone face down. I felt hot and scared. Why was he so angry? I knew Papa wouldn't call me selfish. He believed in me. Still, my whole body trembled. I heard voices downstairs. I walked softly to the top of the stairs to listen. I heard Uncle George's voice. He didn't know I could hear him. He said, "Don't worry, I almost have the money secured. I just need a little more time. Yes. I'll pay you back soon. She'll give it to the family fund. She's just a kid. She can't say no forever." My heart pounded. Who was he talking to? Why did he say he needed to pay someone back? I felt sick. Did he need my money to get out of trouble? I tiptoed back to my room, hugging myself. Tears pricked my eyes again. Papa warned me about people who push others for money. Did Uncle George really care about family or just about the money? Soon my mom knocked on my door. She said, "Emma, are you okay?" I swallowed hard and nodded. "I just talked to Uncle George. He was really mad." She sat beside me and hugged me tight. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I heard him talking on the phone, too. He's under a lot of pressure, but it's not right to put it on you." I whispered, "He said I was selfish, and that Dad and you are filling my head with nonsense." Mom looked sad. She said, "Honey, you know we want what's best for you. Your grandfather wanted you to learn, to grow, to have choices." I showed her Papa's letter. She read it and smiled. Her eyes were wet. She said, "Your grandfather loved you so much, he trusted you." I squeezed her hand. "George said if I don't share, everyone will hate me." Mom shook her head. "That's not true, and if anyone says that, it's their problem, not yours." I wanted to believe her, but part of me was still scared. I asked, "Should we tell Dad?" Mom nodded. "Yes, and Emma, maybe you should write down everything that happens, just in case." I agreed. My heart still pounded. I listened for Uncle George, but it was quiet downstairs. Who was he talking to? What did he mean about needing my money so bad? I lay on my bed, Papa's letter next to me. I stared at my phone, worried it might ring again. I wished I knew what to do. I wished Papa could answer just one last call. Then I thought, maybe there was more Papa wanted to tell me. Maybe he left more clues. I decided I would look for them. I had to find out the truth before it was too late. I looked around the living room. Everyone was there for dinner, but I could feel the tension. It was heavy, like a storm. Aunt Sophia smiled at me, but her smile was sharp, not warm. I felt trapped. Uncle George laughed loudly and said, "So, Emma, have you thought about the family fund?" He tried to sound friendly, but his eyes were hard. I said, "I'm still thinking." My voice was shaky. I wished I could disappear. Aunt Sophia leaned close. She said quietly, "Emma, a good decision can make a family stronger." I just nodded. I looked at my mom. She gave me a tiny nod, like she was trying to be brave for me. Everyone started eating, but the food tasted like sand. Aunt Sophia kept smiling and said, "Isn't it wonderful how family can solve problems together?" "Yes," Uncle George said, looking at me. "Family sticks together." I felt like everyone was looking at me. My cheeks burned. My cousin Lily flashed her new phone at the table and said, "Look at this app. It can order food to your door." Her brother wore a brand new jacket. I thought about Uncle George saying they had no money. I felt angry and confused. After dinner, I tried to go to the bathroom, but Aunt Sophia stopped me in the hallway. She stood in front of me, blocking my way. She whispered, "Emma, you shouldn't test our patience. We are your family, don't you love us?" I stared at her. I said, "I do, but Grandpa and Grandma, they gave me the money for a reason." She frowned. "If you keep this all to yourself, it shows you don't really care about the rest of us. Are you sure you want to do that?" I felt tears in my eyes. I said, "That's not fair." She leaned in closer. Her voice was colder now. "Sometimes, Emma, people remember who stood with the family and who didn't." I didn't know what to say. I felt scared and small. I ran upstairs and slammed the door. I sat on the bed, angry at myself for not yelling back. I could hear Uncle George talking on the phone downstairs. His voice was mad. He said, "We need that money, Sophia. She's just a kid. Why is she making this so hard?" I couldn't believe it. My hands shook. I grabbed my phone and pressed record. I needed proof. If nobody believed me, I could show them. My heart pounded. My mind raced. Would they be even meaner if they knew I was recording? I just wanted them to stop. After a few minutes, my mom knocked on the door. She said, "Emma, are you all right?" I let her in and hugged her tight. I said, "Aunt Sophia cornered me. She said if I keep the money, I don't care about the family. I'm scared, Mom." She hugged me back and said, "I'm sorry. I wish they would leave you alone. It isn't fair." She wiped my tears. I heard loud voices downstairs. Dad was yelling now. He said, "Back off, George. You are not taking Emma's money." Uncle George yelled back, "You just want to control it yourself." Dad shouted, "No, we want Emma to decide for herself." I squeezed my mom's hand. She said, "You did the right thing coming up here. You don't have to answer to them." I whispered, "What if they hate me, Mom?" She brushed my hair from my face. She said, "Then they weren't really family in the first place, honey." I heard footsteps on the stairs. My door rattled. It was Aunt Sophia. She said, "Emma, can I come in?" I froze. My mom stood up. She said loudly, "Not right now, Sophia. Emma needs a break." Aunt Sophia huffed. She said, "We only want to talk." Mom glared. "Enough for tonight. Go downstairs." I listened as she walked away. My body felt hot and cold. Mom whispered, "We'll get through this, I promise." I felt tired and scared. I wondered how much worse things were going to get. What would Uncle George do if I kept refusing? Would they ever treat me the same again? I looked at my phone. I had the recording saved, hidden under a fake name. Maybe it would help me, or maybe it would just make everything worse. I lay down and stared at the ceiling, heart racing. Tomorrow they would want answers. I didn't know what I would say. I didn't know how to be brave. I listened to the voices downstairs getting louder. I wondered if they would ever really stop. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and books all around me. My heart felt heavy, but I knew I had to do something. I typed "inheritance laws for minors" into the search bar. The answers made my head swim. There were so many big words. I whispered, "How am I supposed to understand any of this?" Mom peeked around the door and said, "Emma, are you studying?" I shook my head. "I'm just trying to figure things out." She walked over and put her hand on my shoulder. She said, "Do you want some help?" I nodded. "I don't want to lose Papa and Nana's money, Mom. I want to use it for school, just like they wanted." Mom smiled a little. "That's a good plan, but let's see what's possible." The next day at school, I went to the library. Ms. Daniels, the librarian, saw me looking upset. She said, "Is everything okay, Emma?" I said, "I need help. It's something big, about money from my grandparents." She nodded and led me to her desk. She said, "We can research together." I tried to tell her what I was worried about. I said, "My uncle wants me to give him control of my inheritance, but I don't think it's safe." My voice shook a little. Ms. Daniels said, "Always trust your doubts. Let's read about accounts for minors." We looked up words like trust fund and executor. She printed out things for me and wrote notes on the side. I said, "So, the money can be protected. No one else can spend it until I'm 18, right?" She nodded and smiled. "That's right, unless you sign it over. Be careful what you sign." I felt hope for the first time in weeks. When I got home, Dad was at the kitchen counter, reading. I showed him what Ms. Daniels gave me. He said, "Emma, this is smart. We can talk to a lawyer if you want. Make sure everything is safe." I smiled and said, "Thanks, Dad." I felt a tiny bit braver. Later, I got an email from the law office. I opened it, my hands shaking. It was from the person in charge of my grandparents' will. I read the letter out loud to Mom. "Your grandparents hope this money will help you get a good education. This isn't a rule, but they truly wanted you to use it for school." Mom hugged me. She said, "See, they trusted you, Emma." I said, "I just want to make the right choice. Sometimes I get scared I'll mess up." She said, "You won't, not if you follow your heart and ask for help." I started to research schools. I looked at websites and made spreadsheets. The numbers were huge. My money could pay for 4 years at a good college, maybe more if I got scholarships. Dad came in and said, "What's all this?" I said, "I'm figuring out how far the inheritance will go. If I'm careful, I can cover college and maybe grad school." He smiled, proud. "That's using your brain. I wish your grandparents could see you now." That night I wrote in my journal, "Dear Nana and Papa, I hope I can make you proud." Suddenly my phone buzzed. It was from Uncle George. He texted, "Still thinking. The family fund will help all of us. It's the right thing to do." My chest felt tight. I replied, "I'm looking at my options. I have to do what feels right." He sent back, "Don't take too long. Family is waiting on you." I put down my phone, my breathing quick. I felt angry and scared at the same time. I closed my laptop and lay back, just thinking about all the things that could go wrong. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was an unknown number. The message said, "You don't want to make a mistake, Emma. Think about what's best for everyone." I sat up, suddenly nervous. Who was texting me now? Why was everyone pushing me? I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Maybe they wouldn't stop, not until they got what they wanted. I sat on the edge of Uncle George's couch, feeling out of place. The room was too fancy, but still messy, like someone was trying to look rich but couldn't keep up. There were bills and papers scattered on the coffee table. I looked down at my shoes. I didn't want to be there, but Aunt Sophia said we all needed to talk. I tried to act normal, but my stomach felt as tight as a fist. Uncle George held out a glass of cold lemonade, smiling too hard. He said, "So, Emma, have you thought more about putting your inheritance in the family fund? It'd be a big help." I swallowed. I said, "I'm still not sure. I want to do what's right, but I feel nervous." Aunt Sophia moved closer. She said, "It's for the family, dear. We all have to do our part. Don't you want to help?" I nodded, but inside I felt more confused than ever. I tried to smile. Suddenly, I noticed some papers peeking from under a magazine. They looked like bank statements. I glanced down. I saw huge numbers, negative numbers, lots of overdue and final warning. And there was something about a second mortgage and gambling websites. My heart skipped. Why would they need so much money? Why were they in so much trouble? I said quietly, "Are you okay? These look scary." Uncle George snatched up the papers. His face turned red. He said, "Mind your own, Emma. Not everything is your business." I felt shock rush through me. I said, I didn't mean to, I'm sorry." He put the papers on the top shelf and glared at me. "That's why I keep telling you, grown-ups handle this stuff." I wanted to get out. I stood up and thought about leaving, but just then Uncle George's phone rang. He walked into the next room. I heard his voice, rough and sharp. He said, "I told you I'm getting the money soon. Stop calling me. She'll give it to me, she has to. Just hold off, I'm good for it." I covered my mouth. Who was he talking to? Why did it sound so serious? I felt a wave of fear crash over me. Aunt Sophia tried to smile and said, "Family always comes first. You remember that, Emma." I said, "Why does Uncle George need to pay somebody back?" Her eyes got cold. She snapped, "That's not your concern." I wanted to cry, but I was too angry. I said, "Everyone says I'm selfish, but you're the ones pushing me. You buy new things, your kids have new phones and shoes, but you keep saying you have nothing." She stood up and her voice shook. "Don't talk back to me." Then she smiled, but it was a fake smile. She said, "If you care about this family, you'll do your part." Uncle George came back in, still frowning. He said, "What's going on in here?" Aunt Sophia said, "Emma needs a reminder about loyalty." I held my bag close. I said, "Can I go home now?" He nodded, but then hissed, "You better not talk about what you saw here, Emma." I ran out fast, my heart pounding in my chest. I stumbled outside. The air felt cool, but I was sweating. I wanted to scream and cry and tell someone everything. At home, Mom saw my face and hugged me. She said, "Emma, what happened?" I cried into her shoulder. I said, "They're lying. Uncle George owes people money. He's in trouble, Mom." Dad came into the room. He put his hands on my shoulders and said, "Emma, did anyone hurt you?" I shook my head, still sobbing. I said, "No," but he yelled, and I saw bank papers. And I heard him say he needed my money to pay someone back. They're telling everyone I'm selfish, but they just want the money for themselves. Dad's face turned red. He said, "That's it. I've had enough. You are not seeing George or Sophia alone ever again." Mom nodded and rubbed my back. She said, "We'll protect you, Emma. We believe you." I felt a little better, but I was shaking inside. I remembered the things George said on the phone. He sounded so desperate, so scary. What if he did something worse if I kept saying no? Later, I checked my phone. There were messages from my cousins, all saying I was mean and greedy. One said, "Thanks for ruining everything, Emma." I stared at the screen. I felt sick and alone. Why were they blaming me when I was the one being pushed around? Dad saw my face and said, "Don't listen to them. You did nothing wrong, Emma." Mom leaned over and asked, "Do you want us to call someone? Maybe a lawyer or the police?" I thought about it and nodded. I said, "I just want this to stop. I'm scared. I wish Nana and Papa were here." Dad hugged me tight and said, "We'll figure this out, I promise." But I remembered Uncle George's angry voice and Aunt Sophia's cold eyes, and I couldn't stop worrying that things were about to get even worse. I went to school the next day feeling shaky. I barely slept, thinking about Uncle George and Aunt Sophia. At lunch, I sat alone with my cheese sandwich. My friends were laughing at another table, but I just poked my food. Suddenly, someone tapped my shoulder. It was Ms. Carter, my school counselor. She said, "Emma, can we talk in my office for a bit?" I nodded, feeling nervous. We walked down the long hallway. My shoes squeaked and my hands were sweaty. I tried not to cry. In her office, Ms. Carter closed the door and smiled. She said, "How are you, Emma? You seem upset lately." I looked at her, then looked away. I said, It's about my inheritance. My family keeps fighting about it. I don't know what to do." She nodded kindly and said, "That's a big thing for someone your age. Do you want to tell me more?" The words tumbled out. I said, "My uncle wants to take my money for the family. He says I'm selfish if I don't. My cousins say mean things. I feel like I can't trust anyone except my parents. It's too much. I just want to use it for school. That's what my grandparents wanted. Ms. Carter's face turned serious. She said, Emma, I'm proud of you for sharing this with me. Have you told any adult besides your parents? I nodded. The school librarian helped me look up rules. My parents know everything, but Uncle George won't stop calling. I feel scared and alone. She thought for a minute, then said, Emma, I know someone who can help you. His name is Mr. Lopez. He's a financial planner. He helps students protect their money for education. Would you like to meet him? I nodded quickly. Yes, please. I just want to be safe. She smiled and patted my hand. She said, You're very brave, Emma. I'll set up a meeting. You don't have to do this alone. That afternoon, I met Mr. Lopez. He had a gentle voice and gray hair. He said, Hi, Emma. Ms. Carter told me you're smart and careful. That's good. Can you tell me about your inheritance? I said, My grandparents left me money. I want to use it for college, but my uncle wants to take it away. I'm scared he'll find a way. Mr. Lopez nodded. He said, You have rights, Emma. If your grandparents left it for you, it's yours. There are ways to keep it safe until you're older, like a trust fund just for education. No one else can take it. I felt hope coming back. I said, But my uncle keeps saying he'll take care of it for me. What if he tries something? He gave me a steady look. He said, He can't do anything unless you say yes. So don't sign forms. Have your parents help you. We'll make sure your money is protected. My heart felt lighter. I said, Thank you. I want to do this right. I want to make my grandparents proud. He smiled. You already are. Later that week, Ms. Carter called me back to her office. She said, Emma, there are some great colleges you could go to. Did you know you might get scholarships too? I said, Really? I never thought I was smart enough. She shook her head. She said, You're an excellent student. I think your grades and clubs will help you. Let's look it up together. We searched online. I saw numbers and names of scholarships. I felt excited for the first time in weeks. I said, Maybe my inheritance will go even further. Maybe I could even go to grad school. Ms. Carter nodded and said, Absolutely. You can do great things, Emma. This money isn't a curse. It's a gift from people who loved you. I almost cried. I said, Sometimes it feels like a burden, but now I feel like I can do something good, not just for me, but maybe for others too. Walking home, I felt tall and strong. I felt like I could finally breathe. But when I got home, there were new messages on my phone. Dozens, all from Uncle George and Aunt Sophia. The last one said, You don't really think you can get away with this, do you? My hands shook as I read it. I wondered if they would ever stop pushing. I swallowed hard. If they were getting angry now, what might they do next? I took a deep breath. My hands were sweaty as I plugged my laptop into the living room TV. Everyone was gathering, the whole family this time. Mom smiled at me and squeezed my shoulder. Dad looked proud and worried at once. Uncle George stared at me, arms folded. Aunt Sophia had her polite smile, but it was so tight that it barely looked real. I said, Thank you for coming. I have something important to share. Cousin Lily whispered, What's going on? But Aunt Sophia shushed her. My stomach twisted. I clicked the first slide of my PowerPoint. The screen glowed with big words. My inheritance, my plan. I said, Nana and Papa left the money to me because they wanted to help me with my future. I loved them so much, and I want to use it the way they hoped. College is very expensive, but I made a plan. Uncle George rolled his eyes and said, Emma, we all know college costs money, but the family has needs too. Your plan doesn't help us. I looked at him and said, I know, but Nana and Papa made their wishes clear. This is how I want to use it. I clicked to the next slide. I said, If I use the inheritance for school, I can pay for college and maybe grad school, especially if I get scholarships. I showed them a chart I made. Dad said, That's right, honey, you worked hard on this. Uncle George frowned. He jumped to his feet and said, That's all well and good, but we're your family, Emma. We supported you, raised you, gave you everything. You're turning your back on us. He was shouting now. His face was red. Aunt Sophia said, "Emma, honey, you know your grandparents always wanted everyone to share. That's what family means." I said, "That's not what the will says. I'm not turning my back on anyone. I just want to honor Nana and Papa's wishes." Uncle George slammed his hand on the table. He said, "You don't understand. We need the money right now or there will be trouble. You're being selfish. Your parents are making you do this, aren't they?" Dad stood up. He said, "Don't you dare blame us, George. Emma is making her own choices." Uncle George glared at me. "You little brat, don't you care about anyone but yourself?" My voice shook, but I said, "I care about Nana and Papa's wishes and my future. I don't want to fight, but I'm not going to give up the money." Aunt Sophia tried to smile. She got up and walked around the table to me. She said quietly, "If you really love this family, you'll do what's right. Don't embarrass us." Now I was angry. I said, "You can't keep saying that. I know what you're doing." She hissed, "You owe us, Emma." My hands shook. I pulled out my phone. My heart was pounding in my chest. I looked at everyone and said, "I recorded some things. Maybe it's time people hear the truth." I hit play on a recording. Aunt Sophia's voice came out clear. Her words were cold. "If she says no, we'll make her life hard. She'll see what happens when you cross family." Everyone froze. Mom and Dad gasped. My cousins stared wide-eyed. Aunt Sophia tried to talk, but her voice cracked. She said, "That was taken out of context." I said, "There's more. I heard Uncle George on the phone saying he almost had the money secured and that he needed it to pay off something. You didn't want to help me. You wanted help for yourselves." Uncle George yelled, "That's a lie. You're twisting everything." I said, "No, I heard you. I recorded it too." Dad reached out and said, "Emma, you did the right thing. We're proud of you." Uncle George glared at me and said, "You'll regret this. You're tearing apart this family." I looked at everyone. I don't want to fight, but I won't be pushed around anymore. For a moment, nobody spoke. Aunt Sophia started crying. Uncle George stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard it shook the floor. My heart felt like it might burst. I wanted to cry, but I also felt strong for the first time. Mom hugged me tight. I wiped my eyes and looked at my dad. "What if they never forgive me?" I said. He pulled me close and whispered, "If they really loved you, they wouldn't treat you this way." I stared at the door, still shaking. I thought maybe the worst part was over, but then my phone buzzed again. The message was from a blocked number. "You think you've won. This isn't finished." I felt chills run down my back. I realized this fight might not be over after all. I sat on my bed, knees pulled up to my chest. My phone beeped over and over. Some texts were from cousins, some were from people I barely knew. I read the words again and again, selfish, betrayer, liar. My heart hurt. I wanted to cry, but no more tears would come. Dad came and sat next to me. He said, "You did what you had to do, Emma. I'm sorry people are being cruel." I said, "Half the family hates me now. Everywhere I look, people are angry." He rested his hand on mine and said, "People will say things, but the truth matters. And you told the truth." I said, "What if Grandma and Grandpa are disappointed in me anyway?" He shook his head. "They picked you because they knew you'd be strong, even when it was hard." Just then, Mom called out from the living room. She said, "Emma, the lawyer is ready on the computer." We went in together. The lawyer's face filled the screen. Her voice was calm as she said, "Emma, your parents told me what's been happening. Are you still sure you want your inheritance put into an education trust?" I said, "Yes. I want to go to college like my grandparents wanted. I don't want anyone else to control it." She smiled and said, "That is very wise. The trust will only be used for your education, and no one but you and your parents can say what happens to it." Mom squeezed my shoulder. She said, "We're so proud of you." I felt a little lighter, but just then my phone buzzed again. This time it was Uncle George. I could only see the first part of the message. "You're being used." I didn't even want to open it. I said, "Mom, what if they all keep saying bad things about me?" Mom hugged me and said, "We'll get through it. People who believe George will learn the truth soon enough." I said, he told everyone I'm a bad daughter, that you made me do this. My face felt hot. I hated everyone thinking lies about my family. She said, rumors can't change the truth. The people who really care about you will stand by you. The rest weren't ever on your side anyway. I heard a ping from my school email. It was from Ethan, my older cousin and George's son. I opened it, heart pounding. He wrote, Emma, I saw what's happening. My parents blamed you for everything, but I know the truth. They've always taken money from family, even from me. Don't feel bad. You did the right thing. I stared at the message. I could hardly believe it. I called Dad over and showed him. He said, you're not alone, see. Ethan's a good kid. Maybe more people will help now. I wrote back to Ethan. Thank you, I needed to hear that. I feel alone. Ethan replied, if you ever need to talk, I'm here. Keep being strong. Just then the doorbell rang. Mom went to answer it. I peeked out my window. Aunt Sophia's car was in our driveway. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest. Dad said, stay here, let us handle this. I waited and listened. Voices were quiet, then got louder. I heard Aunt Sophia say, she's tearing this family apart. We just wanted what's fair. Mom said, what you wanted was control over Emma's future. That's not fair. I couldn't stand it. I opened my door and walked to the top of the stairs. They all looked up. Aunt Sophia pointed at me and said, Emma, you are destroying everything. Are you happy now? I said, no, I'm not happy. I just wanted to follow what Nana and Papa wanted. I wanted peace. She shook her head and wiped her eyes, but I saw the anger behind the tears. You'll regret this someday. Dad stepped in front of me and said, enough, you need to leave. Aunt Sophia glared at me as she walked out. Part of me wanted to shout, to beg her to stop. But another part felt stronger, like a wall going up around my heart. Mom put her arm around me when the door slammed. She said, you were brave. I'm proud of you, even if it hurts. I swallowed and went back to my room. I stared at my phone. It kept buzzing. So many people still believed lies about me, but at least now I wasn't alone. I sat on my bed, phone shaking in my hand, and wondered, what else would George and Sophia try next? Would they ever stop? I woke up to sunlight streaming through my college dorm window. It felt strange that now, 2 years had passed since Nana and Papa died, and even stranger how much my life had changed. I sat up, listening to all the city sounds outside and the laughter coming from the hallway. My college is huge. There are students everywhere, running to class, carrying coffee, talking about exams. Sometimes I still feel small, but mostly I feel proud of myself. I really made it here, thanks to Nana and Papa, and the inheritance I fought so hard to protect. I got dressed and looked in the mirror. My hair was longer now. My eyes looked older. I remembered what Uncle George said once. You can't handle that money, Emma. For a second, I felt a sting inside. But then I smiled because I knew he was wrong. My phone buzzed. It was a group chat for my campus group, Money Smart Girls. I started that club last year to help other students with money problems. We meet every week and talk about banks, savings, and how to handle family pressure. I typed, don't forget our meeting after class. Scholarships, pizza, and real talk. A knock sounded at the door. My friend Layla stuck her head in. She said, Emma, you got a letter from the dean. Want to open it together? I nodded. I opened the envelope, my hands shaking. Layla said, you look scared. What is it? I said, I don't know. It could be good or bad. I pulled out the letter and started to read. My eyes widened. Layla, I got an award, the Academic Excellence Medal. My voice trembled with excitement. Layla jumped and cheered. Yes, I knew you could do it. Suddenly, all the memories of home came back. All the times I sat at the kitchen table with Dad worrying. All the times Mom hugged me when I cried over what George and Sophia did. All the nights I stayed up afraid I had chosen wrong. Right now, though, it all felt worth it. After class, I checked my email. There was one message that made my stomach clench. It was from Mom. She said, Emma, I wanted you to hear it from me. George and Sophia are in trouble with the law. They hid money and lied about debts. They can't bother you anymore. My breath caught. I felt surprised, and maybe even sad, but mostly, I felt relief. I called Mom. She picked up right away and said, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I said, "Yeah, I think so. I just can't believe it. Does everyone hate me still?" She said, "People know the truth now. Most are sorry they took sides. George and Sophia made their own mess." I said, "Are you and Dad okay?" She said, "We're fine. We love you, Emma." I felt a huge weight lift from my chest. "I love you too, Mom." That night, our group meeting was busier than ever. After everyone left, one new girl stayed behind. She said, "My uncle is making me feel bad about my scholarship. He wants my money too. I'm scared, Emma. What do I do?" I remembered myself at her age, afraid and lost, just like her. I said, "You fight for yourself. Get help. Talk to people you trust. I'll help you too. You're not alone." Her eyes filled with tears as she said, "Thank you." After the meeting, I walked back across campus. The air was cold and crisp. As I neared my dorm, I stopped and looked up at the sky. I whispered, "Nana, Papa, I hope I did something better like you wanted." My phone buzzed again. This time it was the dean. He said, "We're proud of you, Emma. Come by tomorrow so we can get your photo with the award." I grinned and said, "Okay, thank you." Walking back, I felt strong, maybe stronger than ever. I thought about all the things that happened. I used to be afraid my family would never forgive me. Now, I know sometimes you have to choose your own path, even if others get mad. But as I opened my dorm door, I heard someone whisper, "Emma Carter." I turned to see a woman with a notebook and a microphone. "Campus News," she said. "Can I ask you about your story?" I froze for a second, not sure if I wanted to say yes. What if more people found out? What if George and Sophia tried something again, even from far away? But then I remembered what I had learned, and I smiled. I said, "Okay, but let me tell it from the beginning."